Hello, I'm Anika from Made to Sew. In this tutorial we're going to be looking at pleats, specifically box pleats and inverted box pleats. Throughout the tutorial I'm going to be explaining to you what a pleat actually is, how to create a box pleat and inverted box pleat, how to hold them in place, and where you could use them. I'm going to presume that you're working with a pattern that has box pleats in, or that you're following this tutorial as an exercise.
So what is a pleat? A pleat is a folding of fabric, and this can be done in a variety of different ways to achieve a different effect, whether it be for the design or the function of the product. Now you'll find pleats in garments, you'll also find them in home furnishings and in other accessories. What you see here is a skirt that I've made, and this is an inverted pleat that's going into the waistband of the skirt. Now an inverted pleat and a box pleat are actually the same thing. It just depends on what you see on the outside of the garment or the product that you're making. I'm going to start by showing you the difference between the inverted pleat and the box pleat. So I wanted to share the difference between a box pleat in the pink and an inverted pleat in the green. This is the right side of both of these fabrics and they look quite different. They give a very different effect from the right side. However, if I'm to turn the pink fabric over to show you the wrong side of the pink fabric, you will see that they are in fact the same. The box pleat and the inverted pleat are the same, it's just what you show on the outside of the fabric. So join me for this tutorial and I'm going to be sharing with you how we can mark the fabric, create the pleat and hold it in place. For this tutorial, I'm presuming that you're working with a project that has pleats in it. When looking at the pattern, you're going to see markings like this. There will be lines, either solid or dotted, for either side of the pleat. You may find some patterns include large and small circles. The majority will have arrows of some description to show you in which direction to press the pleat. And the text pleat. You're going to want to start by marking these onto the wrong side of your fabric. You can use chalk, carbon paper, a removable pen, or thread tracing and tailor's tacks, whatever works best for you and your project. I would like you to do that before we go any further. If you're unsure about how to mark any of these things on your fabric, then please see my following videos on marking fabric. I'll put a link to those in the description box below. Now I've marked the lines onto the wrong side of my fabric using a dark chalk pen, this one here. And that's just so that it's nice and clear for you to see. The problem with this is that you can't see these markings on the right side of your fabric, and this can be useful, especially when you're a beginner. So what I would recommend is that you complete a thread tracing or basting stitch by hand down the line that you have drawn. Use a thread that you can clearly see but that isn't going to damage your fabric, and you can complete your lines just like I've done here, and this is the right side of my fabric. Now this is clear and ready for us to complete our pleats. We're going to start by working with the inverted pleat, and you can see one that I've done here and that I've pinned ready to go. Now we're working with the right side of your fabric facing up here, and that's why you can see my basting or tacking threads, so it's nice and clear from the right side of your project. Now what I'm going to do is pick up or pinch the line on the left, and I'm going to bring that into the center. So the line on the left needs to meet in the center, the line on the right needs to meet in the center. So a pinching motion is perfect here. And then I'm going to position a pin at the top to hold that together. And I'm pinning in what would be the seam allowance at the top here. Now for the other side, I'm going to pick up the line on the right, give that a pinch again, And again, I'm going to bring that in to meet at the centre. Now at the top here, where the left and the right side meet the centre of the pleat, I haven't got a gap, and I don't want a gap. Now that's what you will commonly see when looking at an inverted pleat. But there are occasions where you want a gap here, and that would just depend on the design that you're working with. Now I'm going to show you how to do the box pleat. This is the right side of my fabric facing up, and you can see the difference in the pleat here. When completing the box pleat, I would recommend that you do this from the wrong side of your fabric. Now this is the wrong side of your fabric. You can see the lines that I've drawn on here with chalk. And what we're going to be doing is one of these. It's again the same technique that we did for an inverted pleat, because the back of a box pleat is an inverted pleat. So this looks like a box pleat on the front of the fabric and an inverted pleat on the back of the fabric. So we're going to be completing the same technique. We're going to be pinching the left line and bringing it in to the centre, where we will pin it in the seam allowance. We're going to be doing the same with the line on the right. We're going to pinch that and bring it in to the centre line, pinning in the seam allowance. And again, so this looks like an inverted pleat here, but if we turn this to the front, we should see two box pleats. So it's really important that you understand that this is the right side of the fabric here. I'm sorry that I didn't use a printed fabric. However, I wanted you to clearly see the pleats and the shapes that we were making, and I found that that wasn't very clear with the printed fabric. Now, once you've pinned the pleats, you're going to want to fix them in position. This will depend on what you're planning on doing and what the project is that you're working on, whether they're going to be sewn into a waistband at the top here, and how they're going to be attached. You can see this example that I've basted or tacked just by hand across the top of the pleat, and this has allowed me to remove the pins and is holding it all together. Now I would recommend that you do this on your stitching line. This will depend on the seam allowance that you're working with, or close to it, so that you're holding these two folded edges as close together as possible. I'm going to show you how I did this with this pleat here. I've got a needle and thread, and I'm quite good with my eye working out where I need to stitch. But if you're not, please feel free to measure from the edge your seam allowance. Now my seam allowance for this is 5/8 of an inch, 1.5 centimetres. So I'm stitching on or close to that. And I'm just going to do a very small running stitch in and out of the fabric and through all the pleats at the back, and that's just going to hold it in position so that we can remove the pins, and it will then allow you to sew or do whatever you wanted to do along this top edge, and obviously you will remove this basting at the end. There. So just like that, I can then remove my pins and the pleat will stay in position. The other option is to complete this on the sewing machine. You can either use a 4mm stitch length, so a long basting or tacking stitch, and this stitching would need to be removed. So you would only use this if you were planning on sewing across the top to perhaps attach a waistband or whatever you were working on. If you weren't going to be sewing across the top on the sewing machine again, then I would recommend using a smaller stitch length of 2.5mm for strength and security. To sew over the pleat on the sewing machine, you're going to want to start before the pleat, before the bulk that you can feel. I'm working with the 4mm stitch length here, so I'm not going to backstitch at the start or at the end. But if you were doing a stitch to fix it that wasn't going to be removed, you would backstitch. I'm going to take the pins out as I go, and I'm also following a guide here, and that would either be my seam allowance or close to that. And I'm working all the way across the pleat, and then I will stop. Now obviously if I was sewing this in a colour that would stay in, I would make sure that the thread choice was a matching colour. As you can see, I've stitched both of the box pleats using the 4mm basting stitch on the sewing machine. Now you may wish to baste or stitch your pleats at one end and leaving the other end open, or you may wish to do it on both ends. This will depend on what you are working with. The final step is to iron your pleats in position. And then if you are planning on attaching them to a waistband or stitching something along the edges, you would complete that. Now, whether you're working with a box pleat or an inverted pleat, you will need to press it in place. It's up to you and will depend on the project you're working with, whether you want to press it all the way down or just at the one edge. I'm going to press this all the way down, and I'm just going to hold my iron in place and use steam to secure it. And here you have your box pleat and your inverted pleat. You would obviously remove all of your basting or tacking stitches when you had finished your product. This would be after attaching something along the edge if you wanted to do that.
I really hope you enjoyed the tutorial and that you felt that you learned something new. Hopefully you'll feel more confident when working with box pleats and inverted box pleats in the future. Thanks for watching and good luck with your sewing.